This beach house would be perfect for my wedding, my sister Amanda declared, standing in my living room while twirling my house keys on her finger. I stared at her, trying to process what was happening. Just hours ago, I'd received a frantic call from my parents insisting I come home immediately for a family emergency. Now I stood in my own house, watching my sister act like she owned it. My name is Olivia Bennett, and at 32, I never imagined I'd be locked out of the home I'd spent 5 years renovating. The beach house wasn't just any property, it was my sanctuary, my achievement, my piece of paradise that I'd poured every spare dollar into since buying it at a foreclosure auction. You can't be serious, I said, watching as Amanda strutted around my living room, pointing out where she'd placed floral arrangements and seating charts. This is my house. I bought it. I restored it. I live here. Oh, grow up, Olivia, Amanda said, rolling her eyes, the same dismissive expression she'd worn since we were kids. Mom and Dad agree this is the perfect venue for my wedding to Senator Harrison's son. Do you know what this marriage means for our family? Your little beach cottage is finally going to serve a real purpose. I turned to my parents, who stood awkwardly by the door. You can't actually support this? My mother wrung her hands, not meeting my eyes. Sweetie, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Amanda. The Harrisons are practically royalty in this state. Think about what this means for all of us. All of us? I couldn't help but laugh. You mean all of you? I'm the only one who's put any work into this place. Remember when I asked for help with the renovation? You said it was a waste of money. And we were right. Amanda interjected, pulling out her phone to take photos. Look at it. It's so basic. But my wedding planner can transform it into something actually worthy of the Harrison name. We're thinking a white tie affair, probably around 300 guests. My head spun as I watched my sister plan her takeover of my home. I bought this house when it was practically falling apart. While Amanda was busy climbing the social ladder and dating her way through Charleston's elite, I'd spent weekends stripping wallpaper, refinishing hardwood floors, and bringing this 1920s beach cottage back to life. This isn't happening, I stated firmly, moving to block Amanda's path as she measured the living room windows. I have the deed, I have the mortgage. This is my house. My father finally spoke up, his businessman voice in full effect. Actually, Olivia, we've already spoken to our lawyer. Since your mother and I co-signed your mortgage, we have certain rights. And given the importance of this event— You what? I cut him off, my voice sharp. I never had co-signers. I bought this place outright at auction with my own money. A flicker of uncertainty crossed my father's face, but Amanda quickly jumped in. Don't be ridiculous. Everyone knows you couldn't afford a house like this on your own. You're just a marine biologist. A marine biologist with a successful consulting business, I corrected her. Not that any of you ever bothered to ask about my work. My mother stepped forward, attempting to placate me. Darling, we're not taking the house away forever. Just for the wedding and maybe a few weeks before for preparation. You can stay in your old room at home. No, I walked to the front door and held it open. Get out. All of you. Now. Amanda's face darkened. Don't be difficult, Olivia. This is happening whether you like it or not. The Harrisons' wedding planner is coming tomorrow to start measuring for the tent setup. Anyone who steps foot on my property without permission will be trespassing. I stated, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I'll call the police. Really? Amanda sneered. You'd embarrass our family like that? Risk ruining my relationship with James? This is why you're still single, you know. So selfish. Before I could respond, I heard the distinct sound of keys in my back door. Spinning around, I saw Amanda's fiancé James letting himself in, followed by a woman in an expensive suit carrying a tablet. Perfect timing. Amanda squealed, rushing to kiss him. Olivia was just leaving, so we can start the wedding planning. Leaving? I stared at the keys in James's hand. How did you get those? Oh, I had copies made this morning, Amanda said casually. We'll need them for the contractors and delivery teams anyway. The locksmith was very understanding when I explained it was for my wedding. My body went cold. You forged my signature to get copies of my keys. Don't be so dramatic. Amanda waved her hand dismissively. It's a family property and I'm family. Now, if you'll excuse us, Margaret here is the most sought-after wedding planner in the Southeast, and she squeezed us in for a consultation. I watched in stunned silence as Margaret began setting up her laptop on my dining room table, spreading out fabric swatches and flower catalogs. James lounged on my couch while Amanda chattered about place settings and string quartets. My parents stood awkwardly by the door, clearly hoping I'd give in like I always had when Amanda wanted something. Not this time. Without another word, I walked out of my house and drove straight to my office. As a marine biology consultant, I learned to keep meticulous records of everything: permits, contracts, water quality reports, and yes, property documents. I pulled out the files from my beach house purchase and began scanning through them, looking for anything that could help me fight back. That's when I found it: the title insurance policy I'd taken out when I bought the house. I'd almost forgotten about it, but now, reading through the terms, a small smile spread across my face. Amanda had no idea what she just started. I called the title insurance company immediately. "Hi, this is Olivia Bennett. I need to report a potential title issue with my property. Someone is claiming cosigner rights to my mortgage, but I purchased the house outright at auction." The next morning, I woke up to pounding on my door. I'd spent the night at my friend Sophia's house, not trusting Amanda not to try something while I slept. When I opened the door, Amanda stood there, her face red with rage. "What did you do?" she demanded, waving her phone in my face. "The wedding planner just called to say all work has to stop immediately due to some legal hold on the property." I leaned against the doorframe, feeling calmer than I had in days. I simply reported unauthorized access and false claims of ownership to my title insurance company. They're very interested in investigating how you obtained keys to my property without permission. "This is ridiculous," Amanda shrieked. "Mom and Dad co-signed your mortgage. They have rights." "There is no mortgage," I stated flatly. "I bought the house outright at auction with money from my consulting business. You know, the one you always mocked as my fish hobby. Turns out studying marine ecosystems and advising on coastal development projects pays pretty well." Amanda's face went pale. But Dad said." "Dad assumed," I corrected her. "Just like he assumed I couldn't succeed without his help. Just like you assumed you could take whatever you wanted, like always." "You're ruining everything." Tears started streaming down Amanda's face. "The Harrisons are expecting a beach wedding. James's mother is already talking about having Vogue cover it. How could you do this to me?" "How could I?" I stared at her in disbelief. "You tried to steal my house." "Borrow," she protested. "I was going to give it back. After you'd ripped up my gardens for tent poles? After you'd knocked down walls to create your perfect flow for catering? This is my home, Amanda. The home I bought and renovated myself while you were busy dating your way up the social ladder." "That's not fair. I love James." "Do you? Or do you love that his family has political connections and old money?" Amanda's face hardened. "At least I have someone. What do you have? An empty house and some fish." I stepped closer to her, keeping my voice level. "I have self-respect. I have a successful career I built myself, and most importantly, I have the deed to my house, which you will never set foot in again. Mom and Dad won't stand for this," she threatened. "They'll make you give in. They always do." "Not this time," I said firmly. "The title company is already investigating your false claims and unauthorized key duplication. If you or anyone else tries to enter my property without permission, they'll be charged with trespassing." Amanda's phone buzzed. Looking at it, her face crumpled. "The wedding planner just dropped us. She says she can't risk being involved in a property dispute." She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. "You've ruined everything?" "No, Amanda. You did that yourself." As I closed the door on her sobbing face, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. For the first time in my life, I wasn't giving in to Amanda's demands. I wasn't putting her wants above my needs, and it felt incredible. My phone started ringing, my parents probably calling to guilt me into backing down. I declined the call and instead dialed my friend Mark, who happened to be a locksmith. "Hey Mark, remember that beach house renovation you helped me with? I need all the locks changed. Today." "Sure thing," he replied. "Another renovation project?" I smiled, thinking of Amanda's face when she realized her copy keys wouldn't work anymore. "No, just securing what's mine." Later that afternoon, as Mark finished installing the new locks, I sat on my porch, watching the waves roll in. My phone had been buzzing nonstop with messages from family members, aunts, uncles, cousins, all insisting I was being selfish. that I was destroying Amanda's happiness out of sheer stubbornness. None of them had ever visited me here. None of them had helped when I was spending every weekend stripping paint and replacing rotted boards. None of them had believed in me when I said I could make it on my own. But I had done it, and I wasn't about to let anyone take it away from me. My phone buzzed again. A text from James, Amanda's fiancé. Your sister is inconsolable. How could you do this to your own family? I typed back a simple response. How could you accept keys to a house that wasn't yours? Then I blocked his number. The sun was setting over the water, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. I thought about all the sunsets I'd watched from this porch while renovating, dreaming of the day my house would be finished. Now it was perfect, not for a society wedding, but for me. A notification popped up on my phone, an email from the title insurance company. They wanted to schedule a meeting to discuss my case first thing tomorrow morning. I smiled, knowing this was just the beginning. Amanda and my parents had no idea what they'd started. But I did, and I was ready. The title insurance company's office was exactly what you'd expect, mahogany and leather, designed to convey stability and old money. I sat across from Linda Martinez, their lead investigator, watching as she reviewed my documentation. Ms. Bennett, she said, looking up from the pile of papers, I have to say, your record keeping is impressive. Most homeowners can't produce original auction documents and renovation permits on short notice. I smiled slightly. My work requires detailed documentation. You never know when someone might question your research findings or, apparently, try to steal your house. Linda nodded, making notes on her tablet. About that, we've uncovered some concerning activities. Your sister didn't just duplicate your keys. She's been contacting contractors, vendors, and event companies, representing herself as the property owner. My stomach tightened. What exactly has she been doing? We found contracts signed in your name for extensive property modifications, plans to remove the back garden for a reception tent, knock down the sunroom wall for a grand entrance, even permits filed for a temporary beachfront pavilion. She paused. All with forged signatures. I felt the blood drain from my face. She forged my signature on permit applications. Multiple times. And that's not all. Linda pulled out another document. She's been telling vendors that you're her property manager, not the owner. According to our investigation, she's collected nearly $50,000 in venue deposits. She's what? I stood up, pacing the office. That's straight up fraud. It is, Linda agreed. Which is why we've already notified the authorities. Title insurance doesn't just protect against old claims, it covers present-day fraud and misrepresentation too. Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from Sophia. Your parents and Amanda just showed up at my house looking for you. They seem pretty worked up. Before I could respond, Linda's office phone rang. After a brief conversation, she looked at me with raised eyebrows. Your father's in our lobby, demanding to speak with our legal team. Says there's been a misunderstanding about his co-signing rights. I laughed bitterly. He still thinks he can fix this with his businessman act. What happens now? Now, Linda said, gathering her papers, we proceed with formal charges. Your sister's actions constitute criminal fraud. Unless what? Unless she returns all venue deposits and signs a legal admission of fraud. We could handle this civilly, keep it out of the criminal system. I thought about Amanda, about all the times she'd taken what she wanted without consequences, about my parents constantly enabling her behavior. Let me talk to my father first, I said. Downstairs, I found my father in full bluster mode, lecturing a young security guard about family property rights. He turned when he saw me, relief crossing his face. Olivia, thank goodness. These people don't understand. This is just a family matter. We can sort this out ourselves. A family matter? I kept my voice level. Dad, Amanda committed fraud. She forged my signature, took money from vendors, filed false permits. This isn't about a wedding venue anymore. His face paled. What are you talking about? I handed him copies of the contracts Linda had shown me. Your perfect daughter has been running a scam, Dad. She's collected thousands in venue deposits for a property she doesn't own. He sank into a lobby chair, scanning the documents. This can't be right. Amanda wouldn't. Wouldn't what? Lie? Steal? That's exactly what she's doing. And you and Mom have been helping her, whether you realized it or not. We thought, He trailed off, looking lost. Your mother and I really believed we had co-signed your mortgage, Amanda said. Amanda said what she needed to say to get what she wanted. Just like always. I sat next to him. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Before he could answer, the lobby doors burst open. Amanda stormed in, followed by my mother and James. How dare you? Amanda shrieked, waving her phone. The wedding planner just told me all the vendors are demanding their deposits back. Do you know how humiliating this is? Not as humiliating as being arrested for fraud, I replied calmly. That stopped her short. What? Fraud, Amanda. That's what it's called when you forge signatures and take money under false pretenses. James stepped forward, his lawyer mask slipping. Now wait a minute. Did you know? I asked him directly. Did you know she was forging my signature and collecting deposits? He hesitated just a fraction too long. James, my father stood up. Did you help Amanda with this? The perfect society couple facade cracked. Amanda burst into tears while James started backing toward the door. I need to call my father, he muttered. Your father, the senator? I smiled grimly. I'm sure he'd love to hear how his son was involved in real estate fraud. Great headline for his re-election campaign. My mother grabbed my arm. Olivia, please, we can fix this. Just let Amanda have her wedding. She'll return the deposits. It's not about the money, I cut her off. It's about Amanda finally facing consequences for her actions. And you and Dad finally stopping her. Linda cleared her throat from behind us. Ms. Bennett, the police are here to take statements. Should I tell them to proceed? I looked at my sister, really looked at her. Behind the tears and mascara, I saw no remorse. Only anger that she'd been caught. Yes, I said firmly. Proceed. The next hour passed in a blur of police statements and legal documents. Amanda alternated between crying and threatening, while James mysteriously disappeared to make some calls. My father aged 10 years before my eyes as he learned the full extent of Amanda's deception. By sunset, it was done. Amanda would return all deposits and sign a confession of fraud. In exchange, no criminal charges would be filed. She and James were legally barred from entering my property. As we left the title company's office, my father touched my arm. I'm sorry, he said quietly. We should have believed in you more. I nodded, too tired for more words. Behind us, I heard Amanda wailing to our mother about her ruined wedding plans. Some things never change, but I had changed. And as I drove home to my beautiful beach house, my legal, documented, mine alone beach house, I felt nothing but peace. The waves were rolling in as I parked in my driveway. High tide, bringing in the evening breeze. I had some garden cleanup to do thanks to Amanda's wedding planners, but that could wait. Right now, I just wanted to sit on my porch and watch the sunset. The one thing my sister could never take from me, the pure joy of being exactly where I belonged. The fallout came in waves, just like the tide outside my window. First, the Harrison family quietly announced that James had taken a sudden job opportunity overseas, code for getting him out of the spotlight before the fraud allegations could taint his father's political career. Amanda's dream society wedding evaporated overnight, along with her fiancé. I heard about it from Sophia, who still kept tabs on the local gossip. She's locked herself in her old room at your parents' house. Sophia told me over coffee. Your mom's been bringing her meals on trays like she's some tragic heroine. Of course she is, I sighed, stirring my latte. Heaven forbid Amanda actually face reality. The weekend after the title company showdown, my father showed up at my house. He stood awkwardly on the porch, holding a familiar wooden box. Your mother found this while cleaning, he said, handing it to me. It's your grandmother's recipe collection. The one you used to read when you were little. I opened the box, breathing in the scent of old paper and vanilla. Grandma's handwritten recipe cards were still perfectly organized, each one annotated with her thoughts and memories. She always said you were just like her, Dad continued, his voice soft. Determined, independent, I should have seen it sooner. I traced my finger over Grandma's elegant handwriting. She taught me to make her famous crowd cakes on this porch. Said a house wasn't a home until you'd cooked in it. I remember. Dad looked out at the ocean. You know, when you bought this place, I thought you were making a mistake. I couldn't see past the peeling paint and rotted boards. But you saw what it could be. Just like Grandma with her first restaurant, I said. Everyone told her a woman couldn't run a business alone. And she proved them wrong. Just like you did. He turned to face me. I'm sorry, Olivia, for not believing in you, for letting Amanda. It's not just about Amanda, I cut in. It's about you and Mom always expecting me to give in, to be the reasonable one, the responsible one, even when it meant sacrificing what I wanted. I know, he looked older somehow, more vulnerable. Your mother and I enabled her, made excuses. It was easier than admitting we'd failed her somehow. You failed both of us, I said quietly, by teaching her she could take whatever she wanted, and teaching me I should let her. Before he could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Amanda. I showed it to Dad. Mom says you're being stubborn again. Just let me have my beach wedding. I'll even give you credit in the society page announcement. Dad's face fell. She still doesn't get it, does she? No, and she won't as long as everyone keeps protecting her from consequences. That evening, after Dad left, I sat at my kitchen counter with Grandma's recipe box. Between the cards, I found an old photo. Me at about 8 years old, standing proudly next to my first batch of cookies. Amanda was in the background, already pouting because I'd gotten to crack the eggs. Some patterns start early. The next week brought more changes. The title company's investigation had spooked other society families who booked my house for events through Amanda. They quickly canceled, demanding their deposits back. Amanda's perfect wedding venue scheme crumbled like a sandcastle at high tide. My mother tried calling daily, leaving voicemails that ranged from guilt-tripping to bargaining. Surely we can work something out, she pleaded. Amanda's heartbroken. The Harrisons won't even return our calls anymore. I let them go to voicemail. Instead, I focused on repairing the damage to my garden, where Amanda's wedding planners had started marking out tent locations. Sophia helped me replant the native dune grasses, our hands deep in the sandy soil as we talked. You know, she said, patting down a cluster of sea oats, I always wondered why you bought a house with a sea view when you spent so much time underwater for work. I sat back on my heels, looking out at the waves. Because down there, I'm studying someone else's home. Up here, I'm building my own. That weekend, I hosted a small dinner party, my first since the whole wedding venue drama. Just close friends, good food, and the sound of waves through open windows. I made Grandma's crab cakes, following her handwritten instructions exactly. 1 year later, I stood in my kitchen, putting the finishing touches on a birthday cake. Not just any cake, but Grandma's special coconut layer cake, made from the recipe card I found in her wooden box. The sound of laughter drifted in from the porch, where my father was telling Sophia's kids about the local pelicans. Things had changed so much in a year. After the wedding venue scandal died down, Amanda eventually emerged from her self-imposed exile. Not because she'd learned anything, but because she found a new wealthy boyfriend in Savannah. She hadn't spoken to me since the title company showdown, which suited me just fine. My parents, though, that was different. It started with Dad's weekly visits to help me restore the garden Amanda's wedding planners had trampled. At first, we worked in awkward silence, but gradually, stories began to surface about Grandma's determination to succeed, about his own regrets, about the ways he and Mom had failed both their daughters by picking favorites. Mom took longer to come around, but the day she showed up with Grandma's old china set, saying it belonged in a home where people actually gathered to enjoy meals together, I knew something had shifted. Your sister's engagement announcement is in the paper, she said now, walking into the kitchen with empty lemonade glasses, in Savannah. But for her, I replied, focusing on the cake frosting. Mom set the glasses in the sink. She wanted me to ask if she could have her wedding here again. Says the new venue just doesn't have the same charm. I put down the spatula and turned to face her. And what did you tell her? I told her no. Mom's voice was firm. I told her this is your home, not a backdrop for her social climbing. Then I suggested she focus on building her own life instead of trying to take pieces of yours. I stared at her stunned. You really said that? I did, she smiled sably. It's taken me far too long to learn how to be fair to both my daughters. I'm sorry for that, Olivia. Before I could respond, Sophia's voice called from the porch. Hey, marine biologist. There's a sea turtle nesting on your beach. I rushed outside, everyone following close behind. Sure enough, a loggerhead turtle was making her way up the dune, looking for the perfect spot to lay her eggs. Can we watch? Sophia's daughter whispered excitedly. From a safe distance, I said, leading them to the porch steps. She needs to feel secure. We sat together in the gathering dusk, watching as the turtle methodically dug her nest. Dad put his arm around my shoulders just like he used to when I was little, and we'd watch thunderstorms roll in over the ocean. "You know what this means," he said quietly. "She thinks your beach is safe, a good place for new beginnings." I thought about all the new beginnings this house had seen, the renovations that brought it back to life, the dinner parties that filled it with friendship, the family relationships slowly being rebuilt not on obligation or favoritism, but on respect and understanding. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, I sat on my porch with a piece of Grandma's coconut cake. The turtle had finished her nest and returned to the sea, but her presence lingered like a blessing. My phone buzzed, a text from Amanda. "Heard you had a family party without me. Mom says you're still being difficult about the wedding venue. When are you going to grow up and start putting family first?" I deleted it without responding. Some people never change, but that doesn't mean you have to keep playing their game. Instead, I opened my laptop to finish the proposal I've been working on, a grant application for a marine education center. I've been hesitant to take on such a big project, but something about watching that turtle choose my beach for her nest had given me the final push of confidence. The plans included a section of my property transformed into a public education space where kids could learn about sea life and conservation. It wouldn't be a society wedding venue, but it would be something much more meaningful. As if agreeing with my thoughts, a warm breeze carried the sound of waves up to the porch. My house creaked gently, the way old houses do when they're settling in for the night. Some buildings are just structures, pieces of property to be bought and sold, borrowed or stolen. But some become something more, a testimony to perseverance, a shelter for new dreams, a true home. My home. Not because someone gave it to me or because I took it from someone else, but because I built it, board by board, dream by dream, on a foundation of my own making. The turtle had known what I'd learned over this past year. Sometimes you have to dig deep, trust your instincts, and create your own safe harbor. And sometimes when you do, you end up with something worth more than all the society weddings in the world. I closed my laptop and leaned back in my chair, listening to the rhythm of the waves. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new adventures, new chances to stand my ground. But tonight, in my house by the sea, everything was exactly as it should be.